Hi and welcome back to Matthew's Travels and Tips, and in today's video we will review our top 5 tips for traveling during the pandemic and what you need to do to remain safe. Okay, and at number 1, and I think this goes without saying, but the most common tip everyone is being advised of is to wear a face mask when in public or some type of face covering. Now, I do know that some people are against wearing face masks, they think it's uncomfortable, it's hard to breathe. But honestly, it's going to be more difficult to breathe if you have pneumonia that you develop because of COVID. So I think you can sacrifice and wear the mask a little bit just to keep yourself safe and keep people around you safe as well. We're all in this together, and if we all do our part, the numbers will begin lowering down. So our tip number 1 is wear a mask. And while we're on the topic of wearing a mask, if you are going to wear a mask, make sure you wear it properly. You want to make sure that your nose and your mouth is properly covered. Some people like to wear it under their nose, some people like to cover their nose alone. So let's just make sure that if you're going to be wearing a mask and you're going to go through that little discomfort of having to wear a face mask, you may as well do it properly. And our second tip is hand sanitizer. Sanitize, sanitize, sanitize. Sanitize before you do something, sanitize after you do something. Always make sure that you keep some hand sanitizer on you so that if you touch any surface, you can use a hand sanitizer to kill any germs that's on your hands. And there are so many different brands, everybody's making hand sanitizers these days, so make sure you get a good one. If it's hard to find, you can make your own hand sanitizer. I personally made hand sanitizer a few months ago using aloe vera gel and rubbing alcohol. So if you'd like to see a video on how to make your own hand sanitizer, feel free to leave a comment in the description below and I can do a video on showing you how to make your own hand sanitizer. But there are small travel bottles you can get, and it's a good idea to keep some on you at all times just to keep your hands clean. Okay, and our third tip, and this almost goes hand in hand with tip number 2, is wash your hands and avoid touching surfaces when it's not needed. So washing your hands is probably better than using hand sanitizer, and I personally wash my hands any chance I can get. As soon as I get home, I wash my hands. Before I touch any food, I wash my hands. It's good practice, pandemic or no pandemic. So make sure you wash your hands with soap, of course, and when in public, avoid having to touch any public surfaces if it's absolutely not necessary. And our tip number 4 is, and honestly I feel like this shouldn't be a tip, but I do need to say it and give it, and I feel that some people do need to hear this. If you're feeling sick, if you show any symptoms whatsoever, stay at home. Do not go into the public and risk infecting other people, even if you don't think you have COVID-19 or not. Because if you do, it may not be a danger to yourself, but you can be a danger to somebody else. There are people that has underlying conditions that it can be fatal if they contract the disease. So if you're feeling sick and you're not sure whether or not you have it, just stay home. Stay home until the symptoms subside. If they continue, definitely contact your doctor and they will advise on the necessary steps that you need to take to get properly tested and to get treated. And our tip number 5 is, and this is a tip I always give anyone who's traveling: do your research. Do your research on the country that you're planning to travel to. Especially right now, a lot of countries have so many restrictions, whether if they're accepting people to travel for tourist purposes into their country, if they have mandatory quarantine times, which in some cases you'll have to pay out of pocket to stay in a quarantine facility for 2 weeks. So do your research. I know some countries have completely banned all travel into their country until things get better, so you don't want to be planning a trip and then have to find out that as soon as you land in that country, you have to quarantine yourself for your entire period of your trip. You're not going to enjoy it. And honestly, if you don't have to travel right now, don't. If you can avoid having to travel, it's probably for the best that you don't travel. Okay, and these are our top 5 tips for what you should do when traveling during the pandemic. And one last thing, this is not really a tip, but as I've said before, we're all in this together. Be considerate to everyone else around you. If you do your part and everyone else do their part, they can eventually get a control on this, and everything can go back to normal. You can travel as much as you want without any restrictions. It's a short sacrifice for now, so that you don't have to do it later on. But these are our top 5 tips. If you have any questions or if you have any of your own tips, feel free to comment below. And if you haven't subscribed as yet, please do subscribe to help the channel. And thank you for watching. You guys have a good night.